Hey everybody. Um, I've been thinking. No, I've been pondering some things uh, since we've been snowed in here, and one of the things that I was reflecting on is how my credibility as a preacher, pastor, speaker, orator, how much my credibility matters to a to the audience I'm intentionally trying to communicate with and to those I'm unintentionally trying to communicate with. I have been learning and I'm still learning that not only does the validity of my words matter, the sourcing of my information and the crafting of my statements, my arguments, its sentences and the words that I use, all of that, the inflection of my voice, all of that, the rhetorical devices that I use, all of that matters. At least it used to. Because we live in an age now where, because so many voices are out there and there's so many diverse opinions and diverse observations and nuances to situations. And everybody now, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are able to do immediate reactions, responses to videos like this. I grew up in a time when you heard certain orators, particular preachers, when you heard them speak, there was an aura of authority that was understood. You just believed that they knew what they were talking about. You believed the certainty of their statements, especially if it was one that was made astutely, astoundingly, and assuredly. You believed it. But now we've got to the point where that no longer is as meaningful. You know, rhetorical delivery at one point, whether through writing or through oratory speech, was intended to be persuasive. And it is still used in that manner, but it's very much been, I don't like using this word, but it has been perverted to a sense, to a degree. And which makes me even more mindful of how I use the language I use, especially when I'm preaching, how I put together arguments and supporting statements for the things that I make, and how I use declarative statements. If I'm going to use a declarative statement, you know, I want to make sure that it's properly sourced, and that even if I'm in the black preaching tradition, if I'm doing expository, one of my professors in seminary used that term. It's expository for black preachers. Even when I'm doing that type of style, it is imperative that I assure that the witness that comes through the rhetoric is meaningful, mannerable, and purposeful. That's a lost art form. I love listening to black speakers from the late 19th century, the early 20th century that we have recordings of, and you can hear speakers like Marcus Garvey, speakers like Frederick Douglass and his writings, and I could go on and on about some wonderful orators. Howard Thurman is one that when you heard them, and even those who were not so much popular, but like Father Divine and other preachers, that the rhetoric and the way they spoke drew people, connected them to people because, again, they had that reverence of authority when they spoke. And it demanded that you hear it. And now it's been so, it's been, our rhetoric has been so watered down, even when we have persons like John B. Warden, Glenn Lowry, who else? Who else can I think of? Roland Martin, Michael Eric Dyson. I could go on and on about some wonderful public orators. I even include Jamal Bryant in this. These are wonderful orators who can take that old tradition and then make it to contemporary without losing the, it's somewhat, it can get some bit of a hyperbole in times, but at least it's retaining some of that orator tradition. I try to do that in my writing. I try to do that in my preaching, and even in videos like this. It's hard to do because people are looking for that with the connection to the authority, but they don't want the authority, Now, they liked the authority back then, but they don't want it now. They want to sound authoritative and not authoritative. They want to sound as if they're an authority on a topic or on a matter. And that's wonderful because I encourage people to do so. The problem is, in the facet of the world that we live in, the nuances get obstructed. The nuances of the message and the rhetoric get obstructed. And when that's obstructed, it has negative effects. And we're seeing that right now with the rhetoric of President Trump and his sycophants and all those persons who are regurgitating any type of negative rhetoric, be it whatever's out of the political spectrum. So what's my point? My point is I try to hold up to the high standard of rhetorical oration that is liberating, that is informative and engaging, and at the same time disruptive to a system, disruptive to a system that needs to be disrupted. And hold to the traditions and the authority that was laden upon those, some of the names that I mentioned, who carried the great burden of not only speaking truth to power, but walking out the power in demonstration to others so that they in turn could do the same. That's all I'm saying. I hope I made sense. I'm trying to make sense myself, and I hope I made sense. Let me know what you think. And if you get a chance, I'm probably going to write something like this on my Substack. So go over, check out my Substack, Your Differentiating Self, and subscribe to that. And, yeah, have a good one.